What's up, everybody? Back after a hiatus with another NFL picks video. This time talking about the first week of the NFL wildcard playoffs. Sorry for the break between me and Slee. We had some conflicting vacation schedules that kept us on the sidelines for a while, but we're back and here to talk about each of the games in the wildcard weekend. As always, don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it. Subscribe if you're watching these videos consistently and like the content. And as always, comment and let us know what you're picking and what you think of our picks. Also, as we were away and didn't have our videos, we still do tweet off our Twitter handle at Profit at Picks. And I like the Rams Saints teaser a couple of weeks back. Both those games won outright, but I'd like to be safe. Sliwa getting in the college basketball grind, really hitting his stride with the Big Ten basketball picks of late. So something to keep an eye on too, if we're not always making videos. But for the first game, we'll talk about here, the team that's been in a lot of news lately, Bills, 10-point favorites against the Dolphins. At home, obviously being the 2 seed here. I was honestly surprised to see the Bills to be favored by as much as 10. I know, there's some certain questions circulating around the quarterback situation, but I think Tua is going to play. I'm pretty confident he will. And that's why he's the X factor. How he's going to play is going to really determine how this Dolphin team's fares. But what are you thinking here in this game? So, what were your reactions to the spread, and what do you think in this game?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the spread, I had the same initial thought as you, where I thought it was much too high. Obviously, there's uncertainty with Tua. Um, he sat out this week, but Mike McDaniel did say that Tua is going to be playing in the playoffs. So he didn't necessarily say it's the next game, but I mean, it kind of has to be. It's a
Yeah,
10
it's like
point underdog.
you're not going to win this game likely without Tua.
Right.
Certainly not with Skylar Thompson. You're not beating Josh Allen and the Bills in Buffalo.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I am pretty scared of backing Tua at this point. Like, even if he does play, I think there's a solid chance he gets hurt again. He's
Right?
had
That's my opinion.
13 injuries in the last 5 seasons now. There's a lot of talk about just like completely shutting him down, like moving on from Tua, because he's a great quarterback, but if you can't stay on the field, you can't be consistent. It's all for nothing, really.
I mean, honestly, just for his health in general, like he had
Yeah, it's
two
well
concussions
being.
in 4 days, bad concussions, 3 on the season now. Like one other big hit in this game, and the Bills got some big bodies on defense. One big hit, that's a big deal for how much his head's been getting knocked around. And so for that reason too, like this -10 starts to make a little bit more sense when you think that any given moment it could be Skylar Thompson out there and just he's not gonna step up to the occasion. The Bills playing with a lot of emotion right now, obviously with DeMar Hamlin, but also just being slighted last year. And losing that coin flip easily could have been the Bills playing the Bengals in the AFC Championship. So seems like this is kind of a revenge tour for them. We talk about the X factors from Tua and see how he plays. I think for the Bills, like what you're getting out of Josh Allen, what you're getting out of Stephon Diggs, and for the defense for the most part. For me, it's going to be really about the run game here, and that was what they struggled with in that loss against the Dolphins earlier in the season. Really, the Dolphins made them very one-dimensional offense, made it easier to predict what Josh Allen was going to do and where he was going to go, and that was ultimately how the Dolphins were able to take down the Bills. If they're going to have any chance of beating the Bills this game, the Dolphins kind of are going to have to mitigate that run game again and make the Bills a lot more one-dimensional. I don't think they're going to do it, but that's their only option really to compete here, and with their pretty solid run defense. And also, I think just with the cold weather too in Buffalo and the elements, obviously the wind can always play a factor there. You're going to want to run the ball more than passing it, just in terms of ball security. And so the running game will also help with that too, because Josh Allen, he's capable of the big plays, but he's also capable of some turnovers here and there too, which Miami has been pretty good at picking up on the last 3 seasons, just committing or forcing turnovers in the secondary.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've bet on the Dolphins both for or against them a lot this season.
Yeah.
And we've been looking at their secondary, and they just don't have the same secondary as they had the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Howard is who was basically an all pro who
He was
now
one of the
is
best.
like
Yeah.
barely keep him on the field at this point. So I think I like the matchup a lot. The Bills also allow the ninth least passing yards on defense. So Dolphins obviously a team that likes to pass the ball. if Tua's in the game, they're gonna need to throw it a lot, even in the cold weather. I just don't think it's a good matchup for them. And the more you look into it, the more this line makes sense.
Yeah, and when they played, I think it was like on Thanksgiving or really it was close to then. Might have been Thanksgiving. The Bills were favored by like 5 or 6, a big number too, and the Dolphins only lost by 3, and they competed. I thought that this Miami team going into a cold Buffalo was going to struggle. Tua, never really playing in the cold elements all that much in his career. Certainly not in college or before that. Thought he was a struggle, but they stepped up. But I still think that's an argument here too. This Dolphins team, I think the cold weather definitely favors the Bills here. Again, I think that 10. It's a scary number because I could see it going either way. I could see the Dolphins really competing this game if Tua is healthy and can sling it to Tyreek. Another big thing, Tyreek's ankle injury. If that's a huge part of this offense. If he's not going, this offense doesn't go either. Not near to the degree that it has. So another question there, but if this offense can play well, they can certainly compete with anybody. But the Bills also seem to be really clicking on all cylinders. And I know I don't like this -10. It's too much for me, but I like the tease here. I know we talked about that, so I think -10 teasing down is a pretty good option here. I'd be very surprised if the Bills lost this game, though. They seem right now to have a lot of motivation, both coming from DeMar Hamlin and for just aspirations over Super Bowl, getting so close last year in that divisional game against the Chiefs. I think it would be shocking for them to get bounced in the wild card round.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a great tease spot because, like you mentioned, they won a bench last year. It's this is a stepping stone towards what they want to accomplish. I don't see them getting knocked out this early. And before we move on, though, how fishy do you think it was that Nyheim Hines 2 kickoff return touchdowns
Yeah, I don't
to
know.
open the game?
So I was thinking about that. How can you fix a kickoff return though?
Right?
It was
I don't know.
definitely I when I saw the open kickoff return for touchdown, I was like, this is why I picked the Bills in the pick and lead. Like they're coming out with emotion. They're ready to play from the get go. Give credit to the Patriots. They made it a game in the first 2 quarters, and then ultimately the Buffalo pulled away. But it was weird. It was I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think it's hard to rig that
it's
stuff.
hard to it's
It's
hard
like,
to fix that, but
but it was something.
it's
It was
very
something
interesting.
special. I got chills. That's for
Cool at
sure.
the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, very much. Moving on to another divisional playoff game. We got the Ravens, who just played the Bengals in Cincinnati in Week 18, instant rematch in the playoffs here. I talked about really quick X factor for the Ravens with their injured players. You got guys like Lamar Jackson coming back from injury. Mark Andrews, who knows how healthy he's going to be when he's playing a tight end, and then J.K. Dobbins too, who's really good but been hobbled with the leg injury too. How are these guys going to fare? The outcome of this game, whether you're betting spread or money line, is really going to depend on those 3 key offensive players and who have been hobbled and injured in the latter half of the season. And then for the Bengals here, I think it's run defense, and that's because that's not one of the biggest strengths of their game, but more importantly, it is what this Ravens offense needs to get going if they want to win this game. That's when they beat teams. We talked about it in the run game with Lamar Jackson, with J.K. Dobbins, and then working off that to have a really effective play action game, which is where guys like Mark Andrews really eat when you get those linebackers sucked up by the play action, and then Andrews gets in the second level between them and the safeties. So if the Bengals can limit this run defense, it might get pretty ugly. But if Lamar Jackson and company can do what this offense is built to do, then I could see it being a much closer game than a lot of people think. That's my quick analysis, but I'd love to hear what you have to think.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it really comes down to that X factor you mentioned with the injuries for the Ravens. Like, if these 2 teams are healthy, they're very even, in my opinion. 2
Yeah.
great offenses. Ravens like to run, Bengals like to pass, but 2 solid defense, complementary football on both sides. But I don't. I have a hard time seeing Lamar stepping into this game and just playing like we would expect him to. So I was just listening on that Sunday night game. Lamar hasn't practiced in over 5 weeks, so he hasn't practiced in over a month. Got this game happening in about a week now, so even if he does play, I think there's some rust is going to show. And then especially just talking about them wanting to run the ball, it was a PCL injury. That's like knee injury. Could see him being a little bit more tentative on that end. Obviously, 6 is a lot, so I hate I don't feel great taking the Bengals -6 here, but no Lamar Jackson. You put in that Anthony Brown third stringer again. I like it, but
Yeah, yeah. And
a
that's a good
lot
point.
riding on injuries.
That's a lot of good points. You know, honestly, I'm surprised it's taken this long into Lamar Jackson's career to get like a I mean, I wouldn't call this serious because he's only out like 5, 6 weeks, but like a significant leg injury or just an injury in general. You know, he's so elusive. He never really takes that big of hits. For him to go like 4 seasons without really missing time is pretty impressive. So it was kind of bound to happen. And you know, I would think for the Bengals being -6, it's a great T spot if I really believe the Bengals are going to win, but I just can't. I agree with you saying Lamar Jackson's probably going to be rusty. He's probably going to be a little apprehensive to run the ball as much as he has in the past. But I just seen Lamar Jackson do some crazy stuff where I just can't count out this Ravens team with him. And I might be sorely mistaken about that. But I like to think that he's going to come in because I don't think he passed the ball. He's not. I don't think him like passing in that rust is going to be that significant because I don't think he's an incredible passer to begin with. I just think it's like what you said. How is this PCL injury and coming back from without practicing? How is he going to be able to shake off the rust and really run the ball? Is what's going to come down to. I think I'm going to bet. I love Lamar Jackson. I'm going to bet on Lamar Jackson. If I had to take a pick here, I don't love it. This is only going to be a half unit play instead of a full unit because it's definitely my least confident pick. But if I had to pick one here, I like the Ravens +6. I'm really a little bit of bias pick though because I've been on the Ravens all year. I also have Ravens futures, but that's not why I'm picking it though. I mean,
Full
the Bengals are going to win this
transparency.
game. The Bengals really should win this game.
Well,
But when you're playing a team for the third time in the season, you got a coach as good as Jim or John Harbaugh. Anything can happen. And I like and that's part of the reason I like this +6 too. I like the coaching matchup of Harbaugh versus Taylor. Certainly the tenure that Harbaugh has had in Baltimore speaks to his coaching ability and his prowess too. I think that coaching matchup is a lot bigger deal than people think. If you don't believe in that, look at the Titans who had no one playing, no talent playing, and how well they compete against the Jags. Coaching certainly matters. I think Harbaugh's going to give these guys a good chance to at least compete if Lamar Jackson's leg holds up. So we'll have to see here, but again, it's really going to fall on those guys. The injuries, Mark Andrews, how is he going to do when he comes back? J.K. Dobbins, but I believe in this team and kind of the mismatch this Ravens run offense and versus this Bengals run defense. See anything to add before we switch? It seems like you're.
no, yeah, I was gonna mention full transparency. I also have a Bengals future,
Ooh,
so we're
okay.
both leaning our own ways here.
I like it.
But
This
I
your
mean,
Super Bowl
obviously, I've
futures
been what's that?
to win the whole thing.
Yeah, doing the whole thing.
Good luck.
So
I mean, I
thank you,
would.
bud. But
I don't think there's many people in the country that would, outside of AFC North rivals, that would hate to see the Bengals win. They're a likable team.
yeah, so I mean, I've been monitoring them a lot, obviously, because of it. But they started the season off really shaky through the first like 8 weeks. I want to say they were 4-4, and I was like, shit. I think I flopped on this one. I think I probably should have went with somebody who was a little more established.
Mhm.
Kind of went with a little bit more favorable odds. But the Bengals have been one of the hottest teams in the NFL. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they've won their last 10 straight. Them and the Niners have both
Yeah.
on 10-game winning streaks, the two hottest teams in the NFL.
Their
So
offensive
I mean,
line has really stepped up. I mean, Joe Burrow, if you look at the numbers between those first few games, handful of games compared to now, the pressure down, the sack rates down, like the offensive line is really giving protection. And with the weapons they have at wide receiver, an extra second is just everything that Joe Burrow needs to hit his guys. So I really wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals won all this year, but it's just so much talent in the AFC. Like I could see somehow the Chargers beating the Bengals. I mean, there's just even the bad teams in the NFC, AFC, and I don't think the Chargers are a good team. I think still are capable of winning one-off games like that.
the Bengals aren't a dominant team by any means. They're just like, in my mind, they're that firecracker. They could beat anybody. I
Yeah,
mean,
they definitely could. They definitely. I mean, they're the third best team in the AFC, and I think everyone else is pretty far below them. This is the top three tier, and then everyone else. But they're definitely susceptible because they don't have like an incredible strength on defense. Whereas
mhm.
the Chiefs and the Bills may actually playing really. More so, the Chiefs and the Bills surprisingly been playing really well on defense.
I also don't get enough from Joe Mixon either on the run game.
Yeah, he's
It's
struggling.
very just mediocre. Get a couple 3-yard gains here and there.
I
It's
think
very reliant on Burrow.
after rushing for over 1,200 yards last year, he did not even get to 1,000. He's at like mid 800s, but he's a bigger deal in the passing game than he was before. And they also rely on a little P Ryan action a little bit between the tackles too. He's a little bigger body there, but I agree. You know, at some point, Joe Burrow can't do it all. That's what happened last year in the playoffs, but we'll see. Maybe he can. He's pretty great. Moving on here, you can like this X factor here for the Chargers and facing the divisional champs, the Jaguars after being the 1 seed. Yeah, X factor here for the Chargers. Fourth down decisions. It seems like they have so much talent and they blow games and win games just by like, hey, are we gonna go for it on fourth down? It doesn't matter where the ball is in the field. Yeah, we're gonna go for it. And if they don't get it, like that Browns game, if they don't get it, they're gonna lose. And if they get it, they win. And they're just willing to roll those dice game in and game out. It's crazy. But the decisions and then ultimately the impacts of those decisions are what's going to win or lose this game for the Chargers. And then for the Jags, Trevor Lawrence here, X Factor, he's having a breakout season, if you will, in the second half. Looked a lot better, really minimizing the turnovers too. Doug Pearson's been doing a great job developing him, but in the playoffs, under the lights is a different breed of things. So I think it's really hard for quarterbacks that haven't been under the light before to really succeed in the playoffs. Joe Burrow did it, and he was another number 1 overall pick and maybe could do it too, but I don't think there's many Joe Burrows out there, and I think Trevor Lawrence isn't on that tier, certainly. But his play here is really what's going to decide the factor for if the Jags win this game.
Right. Absolutely.
And who do you think? I mean, this is certainly the closest of all the games of the wild card weekend. I think it's going to be one of the better ones. And I'd like to hear what you have to think about this one.
First off, I want to say congrats on that Jags future to win the division.
Yeah,
I know you talked about it earlier in the year.
Oh,
and then
God,
we kind of stopped talking about it, and they just snuck in late in the season.
It was perfect too because I was on the Titans cover. I'm like, I just need the Jags to win by less than 7 points, and boom. And I was on the under. It was the perfect game. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting the audience know that I was on the Jags. Jags plus 300 for the division, everybody.
Looking at the line, it is about what I expected. I mean, you got the Jags at home, so about a 5.5 point difference here. It does seem like quite a bit, and the issue with this matchup for me is just how inconsistent both these teams are. Like, I've seen them both lose and win like very random games. Like the first time these two teams played, the Chargers lost by 28. Right? That doesn't make sense.
Could not believe that.
Yeah, like 28. So
was that the game though? I think that was right after
it was like
the rib thing against the Chiefs. That was
it was really it was early season, like late September.
Yeah.
But look at the line. And then I also saw that the Mike Williams injury, that Brandon Staley just can't do anything right. It seems like
I don't know.
You're playing your starters in week 18. They lost the game too, I'm pretty sure, right? To the Broncos. Yeah. They lost. And you're getting starters injured too at the same. I don't understand it.
I'm surprised he has a job. He would not be my head coach if I was the GM.
Yeah.
Just can't
But the Mike Williams back X-rays were negative, so that's good news. I think he'll be playing against the Jags in this wild card matchup. I mean, just looking at talent on the paper, it's hard for me to bet against the Chargers. And this one, I know they're on the road. They're road favorites, which is tough, especially with how questionable Staley is. But just looking at pure talent, I like the Chargers. I also think their defense has stepped up a lot, like of late. Like Derwin James is making big plays. They're 5-2 in their last 7. The Chargers have started to put together some good football.
Yeah, they played sneaky well of late, and they had 10 wins, and they started out the season really, really shaky. They're still somewhat inconsistent, but they definitely stabilized. And for me, the edge in this game just comes with experience, with the team in general, but also our quarterback, like I mentioned, Trevor Lawrence versus Herbert. At least Herbert's, maybe not succeeded in the playoffs, but he's been in more high pressure situations than Lawrence has, and so is the rest of this team. And it goes with the coaching staff too. Obviously, Doug Peterson got some success in Philadelphia, but in terms of just organization as a whole, you like to see the Chargers where they've been progressing the last couple of years versus the Jaguars. You like to think that in terms of the tiers, in terms of learning how to win, learning how to compete, all that stuff, learning how to win in the playoffs, the Chargers are at least one step above the Jaguars here. So I think experience is going to play a really big role in this game, and that's why I like the Chargers here. -2.5. 3 points makes it a little bit different, but 2.5, I think these guys can win, fourth quarter comeback, win by three is that's kind of the Chargers MO. Play crappy football for the first three quarters, let teams hang around more than they should, and then just let Herbert sling the ball the entire fourth quarter for 200 yards.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I also think just looking a little bit at the stats, the Jags allow more yards per game than the Chargers do actually. So I think these two defenses, we look at this matchup early in the season, the Jags defense was performing a lot better. They've kind of regressed and the Chargers started to play better. The Chargers are seventh in passing yards allowed per game, which was a huge surprise to me.
Yeah.
So especially going up against Trevor Lawrence, I mean, make Travis Etienne beat me. I
Right?
wouldn't want to put my money
Yeah.
down.
I mean, you look at the just kind of comparing skilled players, especially on offense, like Herbert versus Lawrence. Long term, who knows? But right now, it's definitely Herbert, without a doubt. Eckler versus Etienne. Long term, who knows? I really like what Etienne's got going for him, but it's Eckler right now.
Right.
Keenan Allen versus anyone on their team. Mike Williams versus any number two. Like they got these guys beat. They got the better numbers on defense. I like the experience factor. These guys aren't going to shy away from the big moments. They've been there before. You would hope. Certainly
Yeah.
not agree with Jaguars. So I actually really like this -2 spot. Maybe I'm just talking myself into it. But one bad fourth down decision from Brandon Staley,
Exactly.
I hate, changes everything in this game. He outcoaches himself so often, it seems like. Like he'll be on his own 25, 4th and 3, and somehow go for it. It just baffles me, some of the stuff that he does. I love watching because I love to get frustrated with him. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be the head coach to Chargers at the end of next season. Is my bold
Well,
prediction right
yeah.
now.
Well, I mean, just to bring it into perspective, I remember preseason Chargers were in legitimate talks for a Super Bowl this year.
Dude,
When
I
they
mean,
picked
it
up
didn't
when they
help
picked
that.
up Khalil Mack, there was all the
Yeah,
hype with Herbert progressing. You got your receiving core healthy. Obviously, they're riddled by injuries, but like
they're so
Staley
good, bro.
just bringing this team ceiling down.
Yeah, yeah. He just on paper, these guys are one of the most, if not like the most talented roster in football. And it's just like, what are you doing with it? Obviously, you get a guy like Joey Bosa that's hurt. It changes a lot of things. Like he's a one man like game record, but this is a better team than what their record shows, even for a 10-win team. But I think given the playoffs, they'll win this game. I got a feeling this is their game to win. Here's a game where Dallas, who's looked great most this season, 3-point favorites as the 5 seed take on the divisional champion Tom Brady Buccaneers. This is, I think, I saw the first time in his career Tom Brady's had a losing season when he's like played in the game and healthy. Obviously, a few ACL tears before, but I think this is the worst record he's ever had in his career. Which is kind of crazy to me. X factors in this game: pass rush for the Cowboys here. They started the season off as like a top 2 pass rushing team in the league, some of the highest sack rates, hurries rate, QB pressure rate in the league. Of late, that has really dropped off. I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know if the teams are game planning better or just late in the season, Demarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons have lost a step and lost their energy. I'm not sure, but that's it. Their pass rush is a clear correlation with their success for this team. And then for the Buccaneers, X factor here is their run defense, which a lot of big names, but they're getting a little bit longer in the tooth. And this run defense for the Buccaneers this season, which I thought going into the season was a strength, has really struggled. And they're going up against Zeke and Tony Pollard, who are 2 really good running backs in this Cowboys system. It's got a great offensive line and a great run scheme. They were Kellen Moore calling plays. So 2 different sides of the football here for the X factors, but I really think the game is going to be won or lost because of these 2 X factors on either side. I think for either of these teams to win, one of these 2 X factors has got to show up. Were you surprised
Yeah,
at all, Slima, by the spread at +3 for the Bucks at home as the divisional winners, or do you think it's going to be more in favor for the Cowboys?
I think this is actually about what I expected. I know the Cowboys kind of just like sputtered a little bit late, but there was obviously all that talk of them maybe taking the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Right.
So especially with how the public generally bets and just how they love the Cowboys, I think this is pretty on par with what I expected. Obviously, pretty much the same situation as the game we were just looking at, the home underdog here. But we do get the 3 points here, which is a key number.
Yeah.
But I think those are great X factors you mentioned because at the beginning of the season, these are the two points you would mention about each of these defenses. That is their true strength, and they've really just struggled in both aspects of late. And I think the biggest just point for me in this game is just seeing how much Dak has struggled and really hasn't given them an edge over Cooper Rush. Like the Cowboys team's great. Like
I was
you're just
just
not
about to
getting
mention this.
you're just not getting like elite or even top 10 quarterback play, and it's really hurting them, especially because that's how they have a great rushing game still with Zeke and Pollard, but they've really invested a lot in that wide receiving room over the years and just trying to get a passing offense going with obviously Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, but like Dak has not been any better than what Cooper Rush provided them while he was injured. And that just scares me. I know Tom Brady hasn't had a great season, but he's still, I think, sixth in the league or fourth in the league in passing yards.
Yeah.
Still been able to pass the ball very well. And yeah, I mean, I just don't. It's going to be a close game, but I do like Tom Brady at home in the playoffs. I know they made it with a losing record, but I would still trust Tom here more than I would trust Dak from what
I
I've seen.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was just about to say, if you could give me any roster in football outside the quarterback position, I think I'd be taking the Dallas Cowboys. They have an amazing offensive line. They have two great running backs. They have CeeDee Lamb, who's one of my favorite receivers of football, who's a stud. Dalton Schultz is a very serviceable tight end. They have two great pass rushers in Micah Parsons that can do anything in the field. And Trayvon Diggs in that secondary with Dan Quinn calling plays has been great. And yet this team gets killed by the Commanders in Week 18. That shouldn't be happening. Why is Dak Prescott not playing better? Like he is the one holding this team back, and nobody else. This team is playing so well outside of everybody but Dak Prescott. You give them a top 10 quarterback, and I believe this team wins the Super Bowl. But I don't think they have any chance to win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott. And again, I don't think they're going to win this game with Dak Prescott, like you mentioned. You know, one thing's for sure is Tom Brady's not going to make mistakes this game. And I think that might be all they need to do to beat the Cowboys if they can stop the run, because they're going to make Dak Prescott play out of his element. And really, when Dak Prescott has to win games, he loses them more often than not, it seems like, against good caliber teams. And so
Yeah,
I'm with
no,
you. I think this plus three is great. You know, it could be a close game. The Cowboys can somehow pull it out, but this plus three could still hit. Again, I think I'm with you here. I think the Bucks pull out the win, but I like this plus three to be is a lot safer here.
yeah.
Um,
Another X factor too for the Tampa Bay is just finishing drives. Like they
yeah.
move the ball. Tom Brady, obviously the fourth most passing yards in the league. They move the ball. They don't run a lot, but they just don't finish drives. If they could get a couple touchdowns, I like their odds here a lot. And on top of that, they do have a top 10 pass defense as far as yards allowed per game go.
Mhm.
And Carlton Davis, I think, is one of the much better corners in the league. You got a lot of big names on that roster where I think a guy like him flies a little bit under the radar. But you have a really good corner there in Carlton Davis, and then
Mhm.
just complementary players on the defense. Yes, they're getting older, but like you talked in this last matchup, you have a little bit more experience on that Tampa roster. You have a lot of guys who still won a Super Bowl a couple years
Yep.
ago.
Yep. I agree. And you know, the line's not out for this one yet, but I really like the under in this game. I don't know what it's going to be at, but I don't. The Buccaneers, when they win, I think their record, like they're like almost winless if they let up more than 20 points, and like almost undefeated when they let up less than 20 points. I think this game's going to be competitive as the spread implies, and to do that, I think the Bucks defense needs to step up, and this Bucks offense hasn't been all that productive. I think this is like a 19-16, like a 21-16, 21-18 type game. I don't see a lot of points being scored. I would be surprised if this spread is like 44, 43, 42 under. I don't see a lot of points here. The only way the points would come is these are two teams that can, you know, force turnovers. One, the Cowboys with their pass rush, obviously, and then Dak Prescott just throwing picks in that good secondary. So I could see turnovers messing that under up, but I like that. Just I don't think a lot of points there. Two games left here. We got a rematch of the season with it's almost the exact rematch. Vikings at home facing the Giants. The Vikings won that first matchup by 3 points. X factor here for the Giants, their receivers. Everyone knows that Daniel Jones can run the ball himself. Obviously, Saquon, one of the top elite running backs this season in football. And then on the flip side of the coin, the one real weakness that I talked about all season long for this Vikings team is their secondary. So this receiving matchup against the weaker, older Vikings secondary is what I think is really going to decide the game if the Giants are going to have a chance. And the X factor here for the Vikings is Kirk Cousins. It's always not a 12 o'clock game, Sliwa. I checked 4:30 game for them. We'll see how that matters. I don't know. It's better than under the lights, but it's no 12 o'clock game. But really, when Kirk Cousins doesn't commit turnovers, this Vikings team is really good. And when he commits turnovers, this Vikings team can lose to anybody. And so it's really going to be on the shoulders of Kirk Cousins, as it often is in this offense and this team, if they're going to want to win this game here. -3 doesn't surprise me at all. I think it's a great spread, honestly, as one would easily assume just by the Vikings winning by 3 points at home last time. I do think that the Vikings are more talented. I think I want to say better coach, but not. Brian Dable's a great coach, but they're better coach because they have better talent too. So it's easier to make the coach look good. But I think if both teams, given the adjustments they're going to make from the first matchup, I like the Vikings with just better talent to surpass that -3. And I think if I had to pick one side here, I like the Vikings to win this game. I think they really should win this one with how talented their offense is and kind of how unstoppable Justin Jefferson is. I think they win this game. I think it's probably going to be about like 6 points if I had to take a stab at it. But what do you think here?
Right. Well, I can't remember for sure, but I do think this was the same spread too in the first matchup. We took
I think
the
3.5. I want to say
okay. It could have been, but
I think I lost. I picked the Vikings. No, I lost. They only won by 3, but it was close.
Okay. I got you. But yeah, I mean, you hit on a big point here, and I know we mentioned this last time these two teams played, but the Vikings' real weakness is their secondary. And I was looking into it. The Vikings actually allowed the second most yards in the league this year, which was kind of blew my mind. Is for how good they've played,
Yeah,
or just
with
their
their record
at least
yeah.
indicate. Yeah, but looking into that though, like you mentioned, like it's on these Giants receivers and Daniel Jones to throw the ball because the Vikings are the 4th worst pass defense in the league. They fare much better against the run, which is what the Giants want to do. So I think although the Vikings defense is pretty bad, they match up a little bit better on paper with the Giants here. And then just looking at the Vikings offense, they've been putting up points almost no matter what. So if the defense could show up, play a decent game against Daniel Jones, I think they'll come away with
I think the much safer line
like touchdown win.
I think the much safer line here is -3. And to your point too, in points, we said the exact same thing. Like in these Vikings matchup well against the Giants secondary versus the Giants receivers run defense is their strength, and yet they still only won by 3. So I think it's gonna be. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a close game, but again, I think with the talent the Vikings have, they definitely have more talent than the Giants. There's no question about that. You make the same adjustments in the same magnitude, better talent is going to prevail. And that's why I like the Vikings here at -3.
Yeah, PFF hates the Giants too.
Yes, they do. And honestly, I think I think Brian Dable's a great coach. And I think they're tough, and that's what's gotten them the playoffs here. X factor here for the 3rd divisional matchup in the playoffs, which is great. Geno Smith here for the Seahawks. He's had some great electric games where he makes unreal throws that I can't believe this guy's making. Has one of the highest top 5 QBRs in the league until kind of sputtered the last few weeks. We'll see what he can do against this incredible top-rated Niners defense. X factor for this 49ers team, if they're somehow were to lose this game, it's because turnovers. We know that they can convert a ton of turnovers on defense, but the key really is not committing them on offense. It doesn't matter. It's been proven this season. It doesn't matter who is playing quarterback for the 49ers. As long as you don't turn the ball over, they're going to win games. It is insane, the streak that Shanahan has been able to pull off with Brock Purdy, a quarterback. And there's no surprise to me it's -8.5. I honestly thought the spread was going to be bigger because I don't think any team could put up enough points right now in the wild card round to beat this 49ers defense alone, especially with the way the Niners offense is playing, getting Debo back. Jimmy G not going to be playing this game. They'll be lucky to get him back for the NFC Championship game, which I do believe the Niners will make. I think the Niners carve this 8.5 points. But I really love this. 8.5 is the best, one of the best lines to have a teaser here. I'm just gonna put this out there right away, Sliwa, just because -2.5 there. All you gotta do is win by a field goal. I'm guaranteeing the 49ers win this game. There's not a doubt in my mind. They are so good. All they do is run the football, play action, go to George Kittle, and play incredible defense and force turnovers. Brock Purdy has to do so little, and that's all he's just playing within the offense and playing within his element, and I love it. And I cannot wait to see these guys play the Eagles in the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you hit on a lot of the points that I was going to get at. The Niners are the much better team, both ends of the ball. They should be able to dominate in that run game as well. But just a quick note, like you hit on that Jags. I had the Seahawks making the playoffs.
Yes, you did.
So we both hit our underdog playoff teams. So that's pretty nice.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Good for us.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. But I was also really surprised to see Geno Smith broke Russell Wilson's single season passing record. That
one more game, but still impressive.
Fair.
I mean, he's still threw for like less than 20 points in this game. But it's kind of crazy that he's like the all-time leading passer in a single season in the Seahawks, which is nuts to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that the Niners win this game, but I do think the turnovers is the excellent point, is the X factor. Because while Brock Purdy's been great, he's had a couple picks here and there. Who knows? Throws 2 interceptions. Geno Smith takes care of the ball. That could be a difference.
Yeah, I mean,
at the same time, that's the only way I see them losing.
Yeah, it's funny because in that single sentence, you just basically you talk about both X factors and just laid the scenario out for the one way for the Seahawks to win is Geno Smith plays well, and the Niners offense commits turnovers. That's the only formula for the Seahawks to win. I just don't see it happening, but that's what needs to happen for them. So we'll see. I honestly could see I think the Niners win this game by like 14. I think their defense just dominates, and they don't need to put up many points.
Seahawks play a lot better too, and they get Kenneth Walker going. And from what I can remember, last time these two teams faced off, the Niners were able to slow Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I agree. So that's the last game we're going to talk about. Going back to our card, the lock. I really like this. The more we talk about it, this Chargers -2.5. This Ravens game we got +5.5. It's out +6. That's only a half, not too confident. I really like this Bills Niners teaser too. That's competitive for the lock too. Just Niners 2.5. I love Bills -4. It's not a key line. That's the problem. The -10. It's not going through key numbers. Like the -3 would be a lot better. But I still think with Tua, being liable to get out of the game at any point, this Bills spot is pretty solid too.
I also think. I know you like the Niners to make it to the NFC Championship. I think the Vikings could sneak their way in.
I'm fading that. You can't give me a defense that lets up the second most yards in the league.
On the pass. Or actually no, that is total. But I don't know. They're weaker against the pass.
Wins, baby. You remember they got killed by the Eagles in week 2? I'm not saying that's going to happen if they play again, but there's so many holes in this team. I think I can even see the Bucs beating them somehow. They're just the Vikings. Kirk Cousins. You can't sell me on these guys. I don't know. I honestly want them to. No, I don't. I can't even say I want them to.
They're going to surprise everyone.
We'll see.
That's my one hot take.
My hot take is that the Niners represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's my hot take. I don't know how hot that is, but I also have Niners futures. But I still believe in them. Their defense, baby. Their defense. Before we end the video, got to remind you of Prize Picks. Great app. We got some signups recently using the code PROPICS. Get your first deposit matched up to $100. But that's the video. I'm so pumped. Sliwa, great year. We missed a few weeks based on vacation, but we got lives too.
Yeah, great year overall.
Great year. Let's kill in the playoffs here. I really like the card, and I can't wait to watch playoffs. We killed in the playoffs last year. Let's do it again this year.
All right, let's get it.
All right.
All right, good luck, everybody.